Some conversations hit a little deeper because they reflect the quiet tug of war happening inside so many men today. Healthy masculinity versus toxic masculinity, strength versus softness, belonging versus pressure to perform. And somewhere in the middle sits the whole red pill narrative that's reshaping how young men see themselves, their relationships, and the world. Welcome to Welcome to where we are here to sit in the gray zone, to question the stories we have inherited and the ones we are still writing. Joining us today is Doug Daniels, unionized 3D data librarian with a deep love for history and maybe the cleanest living room in America. Someone who stumbled through his 20s, rebuilt from ground up, and finally found where he fits in both work and life. So, welcome to the show, Doug. It's an absolute honor to have you with today.
Thank you, Sayan. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. And Doug, it's kind of a safe spot we are in, and I was looking forward to this conversation this whole day today. And but before you know, s- before anything else, I think we need to start with the basics. Just like
Mhm.
with the physical health, you can't build a healthy mindset if the foundation is shaky. And for men, the foundation is the language we use around masculinity. So let's start there, Doug. Do you think the term toxic masculinity has helped young men understand healthier behavior, or has it just been, kind of a buzzword that pushed them into defensiveness?
Sure. Yeah. So it's interesting that you bring up physical health because I've been investigating a little bit of the toxic masculinity and the manosphere, as we sometimes call it. And what I found was actually rather surprising. Overall, I think the name is very apt. I do think it is toxic, and ultimately destructive. But I think one of the reasons why it captures so many young men is because it does have these kernels of truth in it. One of those being physical health. Um, I think they overemphasize physical strength as opposed to physical health, and physical dominance as opposed to physical health. But there is something to be said about having a healthy body before you can have a healthy mind, or rather, the healthy body can lead to a healthy mind. And on a similar note, the other thing that I found that the Manosphere teaches, which I think is very, very good to teach, is for young men to try and avoid what they call dopamine traps, like pornography
Right.
or internet addiction and stuff like that. So those 2 points, I think, are not emphasized enough on the left, shall we say. And so I think that advice is part of why young men are so taken by the manosphere and why they get red pilled so quickly and so easily, it seems like, because there are some good advice out there.
Right, right. Absolutely. I totally agree with you. And especially about, that dopamine trap that you just mentioned earlier. And I think honestly, most men that I talk to, right, aren't trying to be harmful. They're not trying, they're trying not to drown, basically, right? There's a
Right.
certain degree of pressure. And I think that pressure actually leads perfectly into what I want to ask next, because when men feel like they are drowning, they go looking for something to hold on to, right?
Right.
And right now, a lot of them are reaching for that red pill space that we talk about. So I want to understand why, the why aspect of it. So, that what's your take on this?
Yeah. Um, well, I think, you know, eh, men in general in society, in modern society, have gone from a position of unquestioned dominance, both kind of social and professional dominance. The husband is the head of the household. The man is the boss at work. The man is allowed to work. And over time, we've become increasingly we've reached an increasing level of parity with women, or I should say, women have reached an increasing level of parity with us, and I think that's threatening to some men. And I
Yeah.
don't think we've done a good enough job of still being able to celebrate men's role in society.
Hmm.
I think it's been mostly just a denigration and uh, just pointing out all of the wrongs that men have done over the years, and men continue to do. And I think it's hard for young men who are just kind of discovering who they are as young men, and they're not hearing a lot of positive things. The only people that are really saying positive things about men and about masculinity are the Andrew Tates of the world. And I would argue that his version of masculinity is about as toxic as it gets. But
Right.
still, if you're a young man just coming into the world, it's much easier to listen to somebody who's telling you all the things that you think you want to hear, as opposed to, the rest of society, which is saying that, you're dangerous, you're too loud, you take up too much space, all of these things that, are true in some ways. But I do think that there has been too much of a swing um, away from an equal footing with women. It's a tough balance.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. And when you break it down like that, Doug, it stops sounding like a movement and starts rather sounding like a coping strategy to me. It's
Absolutely,
n-
absolutely.
not always healthy, right? But
Yeah,
it's definitely it's meeting a need, I would say,
yeah.
to some degree. I appreciate the honesty there, and that doesn't need to just show up online. It shows up at work, in leadership, in the roles men feel that they have to play every day, and that actually brings me to this, Doug, because you have worked in high stress environments yourself,
Mhm.
and I think those kind of environments are the environments that do play a pivotal role, I would say, to define what being a man should look like. So my question to you is, how did those environment define what masculinity should look like?
Well, I think in the past, those environments were kind of a dog eat dog situation where the strongest, most assertive men were the ones that ended up on the top. I mean, I think we still live in that kind of a world. You look at the
Hmm.
I don't know what the stats are, but I know for a fact the majority of the richest people in the world are men, and I would say almost all of the most powerful people in the world are still men. And
Yeah.
I think that does have some consequences, both good and bad, mostly bad, for the way that young men view the world. They see themselves as, well, isn't this what I should be aspiring to? Isn't that what success is? And so I think a large problem is just that, is how we have defined success for men. And for almost all of human history, successful men were rich, powerful, had many concubines. They just took what they wanted, and that was the measure of success. And I think in a modern sort of secular world, not to say religion doesn't play a role, but in a world that's governed by humanist values, we just need to redefine what
Hmm.
success means for men and for
Yeah. Wow, that's I love that. I love that how you frame that, Doug. And honestly, that is, I think, uh I would say, the root cause of this uh, toxic trait, I would say. But
women.
when you break it down like that, Doug, my take on this, absolutely, we need to redefine what success looks like, because success, to some person, could be, okay, buying that car, right? Buying
Right.
that supercar, maybe. For me, it could be, sitting by myself along, you know, a riverside, on the bank. It could be anything, right? With my
Right.
family, with my friends. Um, but but I think we are just so narrow minded that we see success as, as a particular on a particular niche, right? We don't normalize success as it could what it could feel like for the rest or the majority of us. And that brings me back to this, that do you feel that we have swung too far in telling men to be vulnerable, or are we still not encouraging emotional expression enough?
I mean, I think the word vulnerable is not maybe the right word to use. Self-aware, maybe, because vulnerable
Mm.
has weakness connotations, right? It has the connotation
Right,
of being subservient or in danger in some way.
right,
Um,
right.
I you know I've been to therapy many times, and I wouldn't have described myself as vulnerable. Um,
Right.
I'm not afraid of vulnerable conversations, but I wouldn't use that word to describe myself. And
Mm.
so and I think language is important. And definitions are important too. Like success. You mentioned success could be buying a supercar, and you know what? That's okay if that's what somebody wants to do to be
True.
successful. That's the other
Do it.
this is that I think we've demonized certain definitions of success. And for me, as long as you're acquiring that supercar without exploiting other people or without, abandoning your responsibility to your family, I mean, go for it, right? Like
Mm.
if you can work hard enough and raise a family and be a positive influence in the world and want to buy a supercar, go for it, man. I mean, I think, yeah, I think we need to broaden our definitions of success, but that doesn't mean that, being having six pack abs is toxic or having a supercar is
Right,
toxic. Those two things can be
right.
uh, markers of success just as much as being emotionally available can be a marker of success.
But you actually answered, my following question as well, that which was around, is that some people have this argument that today's push for healthy masculinity is watering men down
Yeah.
and discouraging ambition. But the way you frame that, Doug, if that's what is gonna keep you happy and bring a purpose into your life, then go for it, right?
Yeah, totally.
Uh, but here's the catch, Doug. How valid do you think that criticism actually is?
Yeah, I don't want to get too far into the weeds with Marxism and capitalism and everything like that, but I do think that capitalism, unfettered capitalism, is an exploitative system. And so to be ambitious in a capitalist system generally usually means that you're exploiting other people to achieve that
Mm.
success. But I think we've, as a species, figured out ways around that sort of exploitation. There's a saying that more water in the harbor means all of the boats rise, right? Um, and I think there's a way to fulfill your ambition without stepping over people. You can actually, lift them up as you go. That's one of the biggest problems that we have in society today is that we celebrate people like Elon Musk, like Jeff Bezos,
Yeah.
just because they have tons of money, but they're not doing
Mm.
anything good for
With that,
society with
yeah,
that money.
yeah.
We had, the Leland Stanford and J. Paul Getty and Carnegie Mellon, like all of these robber barons from the 19th century, their legacies are universities and libraries and museums and research institutes. Now, I'm not saying that these were good men, but they
Mm.
at least felt some sort of pressure to have their legacy be something other than wealth accumulation. And it seems
True.
to me that we have put wealth accumulation at the very, very top of the the list of things that it means that defines success. Um, and I think that's where we've gone wrong. Like Jeff
Mm,
Bezos and Elon Musk should be embarrassed
yeah,
that they
yeah.
have as much money that they do, and they're not doing a damn thing with
Oh,
it except
anything.
just acquiring more.
Hmm. And this actually reminds me of I think you would have do you know Billie Eilish? Do you
Yeah,
hear it?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I've seen her criticism. Yeah, he's a pussy bitch or
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I
I
completely
agree too. I agree too.
I
And sorry to interrupt, Doug.
no,
And
go ahead.
the thing that struck with me was that if the quote that if you are a billionaire, why are you a billionaire, right? I mean, what are you gonna do with
Right.
people need to understand the difference between a millionaire and a billionaire, right?
Yeah.
I mean to put that into perspective, if you give away like 10 million to charity,
Mhm.
it's not gonna do anything to your pocket, right?
Not at all.
But you can't say the same for, I mean, the millionaires, right?
Yeah.
And that I think that's where people have gotten this wrong about the about the wealth accumulation thing. And I think if you have that much money, I think you could definitely end you know um issues like world hunger or whatever that is, right? I
I
think that would require
No, yeah. And
different.
what I don't understand either is like if obviously these men crave attention and power. And so what I don't understand is why they don't see this as an opportunity. Like, if Bezos or Elon Musk wanted to stand up to somebody like Trump, say, they have the means to do it. They could have,
Right,
just made themselves this like hero to not just United States, but the world. They could have
right.
written their names into history as, paragons of virtue. They made all of this money and they used it to uplift humanity. And instead, they're just building dick-shaped rockets to take them to Mars. Like, what are you doing? It just doesn't make any sense.
I appreciate that so much, Doug. And here's a real takeaway for anyone listening to this right now. Um, Masculinity doesn't need to be rewritten. It needs to be, has to be rebalanced.
Mm,
The difference between healthy and toxic often comes down to your intention, timing, and the context.
mhm.
And before we wrap this up, Doug, for anyone who's listening to this and wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do so?
Well, I host a podcast with my partner, Carrie Prince. It's called People Fuss. You can find it on Apple Podcasts. Our hero platform is YouTube. So if you just search for People Fuss at People Fuss, you'll find us on YouTube. And we talk about all kinds of things, including we have some episodes on toxic masculinity and feminism and all that good stuff. So we try and talk about everything under the sun that has to do with human connection.
Wonderful. Dear listeners, I'll have the details in the show notes for you, so you can check them out anytime at your own convenience. And with that, we hit today's mark with Doug. Doug, thank you so much for reminding us that masculinity isn't a monologue, right? It's shaped by pressure, love, fear, and the stories that men carry in silence. Thank you for being willing to explore that messy middle with us. And to every listener navigating your own version of this conversation, you're not behind, you're not broken, and you're not too late. You're just evolving. Keep questioning. This is Mind Over Masculinity. I'm your host, Sayan. And until next time, keep unlearning, keep showing up.